Now, the Greens say the budget lacks vision and takes money away from people who are already struggling.
Greens leader Bob Brown joins us now from Canberra. Senator Brown, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Virginia.
Your broad brush response to the budget last night?
Oh, it's lacklustre. You know, it's got some high notes and some low notes, but it just really, the music's not there. This is a wealthy country. We have the best resource base in the world. There's a mining boom on. And all we're hearing about from both the big parties is cuts. And when it gets down to the miserly cuts, for example, to our great National Gallery, the National Museum, the National Library, cutting displays, cutting programs for the Australian people in these iconic nation feel-good and great cultural institutions, it's completely unnecessary. They should have done a little bit more to get some of that mineral wealth, both the big parties. If they'd taken Treasury's advice, we'd have an extra $100 billion in the budgets for the next 10 years, and we wouldn't be having those sort of cuts, but we would be able to inject a lot more, for example, into public transport, which is totally missing. In fact, there's a $500 million cutback in regional rail, or delay in regional rail spending in Victoria, and there's no sign of high-speed rail, which this nation should be beautifully placed to be taking on, simply because the big parties won't get a fair deal from the Australian people's own mineral wealth.
Are there elements of this budget that you'll be looking to amend in the upper house?
Well, we haven't seen how it's configured and how it's set in legislation yet, Virginia. We have always said we're going to ensure supply. We are a responsible party economically and politically, so we will be ensuring supply. The government's can be reassured by that. On the other hand, it is our job to improve. And if we can improve this budget for a better outcome for Australians, then we'll be certainly looking at that. But of course we have to see how the government is legislating, and not only the cuts, but its spending program for the next 12 months before we can say how we'll be doing that. A big win here for mental health. The sector, Patrick McGorry, and our own Rachel Seward within this Parliament have been working hard on that. I congratulate the government on that, even though $490 million of that spending, that extra $1.5 billion spending, is going to have to wait 5 years. But it's a big breakthrough for mental health, and there's a promise in the budget, it's written into it, of much improved dental health spending. The Greens have been working very hard on that in next year's budget, although $53 million there to skill dental interns and to get more dentists available for a better dental health outcome, which is, in the long run, will save billions of dollars from future budgets.
This budget is supposed to be about getting Australia working and getting some jobs growth and having, as the Treasurer says, all pairs of hands engaged. Do you see the evidence of that actually coming to fruition down the track?
Well, yes, there is, but there's some harsh measures in it too, Virginia. A $56 a week cutback for some families with teenage children, and a $43 cutback for some people 21 years old who can't get a job because...
But some families with teenage children also get a bit of a fillip as well.
They do in other measures in the budget, and that's why we're going to have to look very carefully at this budget to see exactly who the winners and losers are. We're concerned that there's going to be a squeeze on young mothers to separate them from their infants on the idea that they must be out at work. Well, maybe they're better at work looking after their families and making sure they're going to be well catered for, and their future is going to be well catered for. These are details that we really will have to look at carefully when the government brings the budget
in particular, is that one particular area that the Greens then will have a very close look at in the upper house with a view to amending it when you see the form it comes in legislation?
Well, our first thing is to talk with the government. This legislation will be coming down the line over the coming months. We will be, no doubt, looking at potentially amending, but I can reassure the people and the government that this is not going to be a manoeuvre using the Greens' balance of power. The opposition's also in the balance of power in the Senate accept responsibly for a better outcome for the Australian people.
Can I get you to reflect on the news that Scott Rush has had his death sentence commuted to life in prison instead in Bali?
Well, it's great news. The anguish of Scott Rush's family is palpable. What he's been through himself is we just have to hope that he can be repatriated to this country earlier than appears with the life sentence that he has. It's a situation that should never have arisen. It has, but that this young Australian's not going to suffer the death penalty will be a great relief, and in particular, of course, to his family.
And look, one thing in particular that caught my eye, and I guess you might put this under taking out the trash on budget day, but late yesterday afternoon the Victorian government revealed that it had henceforth ceased all discussions on closing down the dirtiest power station in the country. That's the Hazelwood Power Station in Victoria. Those discussions were well underway. Now the Victorian government says it's abandoned those discussions. What do you understand is going on there, and what's your response to that?
Well, I don't know, Virginia, but that's irresponsible of the Baillieu government, and the Greens are taking a much more responsible view than that. We believe that power station is creating a huge economic impact on our future. It represents climate change central, with huge impacts. Sir Nicholas Stern said within a generation or two, 5 to 20% of our future budgets will be engaged in trying to undo the damage of climate change, and it's very blinkered of the Baillieu government not to be tackling that dirty power station. It is a blight on our future economy as well as the environment.
Bob Brown, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia.
And lots more budget reaction coming up, including